Fran Brown is taking a risk by bringing in Johntay Cook, but make no mistake, this is a gamble that could pay off big time for Syracuse football.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Folks, was there ever any doubt? On Sunday afternoon, Syracuse football got two crystal ball predictions from two of the best insiders in the business. You got On3's Pete Nakos, On3's Steve Wiltfong, saying that Syracuse will land former Texas and Washington wide receiver Johntay Cook. That was Sunday afternoon. And it took a little while, but now it's official. Johntay Cook is a member of Syracuse football. Hello, everyone. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And of course, we are always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, or tonight's show, if you are watching this Thursday late in the evening, May 1st, we're going to discuss how Johntay Cook changes Syracuse's offense. We're also going to discuss the wide receiver depth chart with Johntay Cook in the fold. But we're going to start the podcast talking about how this is a high-risk, high-reward move for Syracuse football. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, shall we? Let's go over the bio. ESPN lists Johntay Cook at 5'11", 185 pounds. He's got 2 years of eligibility remaining per 24/7 Sports Syracuse insider Mike McAllister. And Johntay Cook was in the 2023 high school recruiting cycle. More on that in just a moment. Transfer portal ratings for those that are curious. On 24/7 Sports, he is a 3-star, 43rd best wide receiver in the transfer portal, and a top 250 overall transfer in the entire country. On On3, he is not listed. I don't know why, so we can really only go off what 24/7 Sports' evaluation is on Johntay Cook. This is a high-risk, high-reward move. We're going to start talking about the reward to be positive. And folks, I want to hear from you right now in the comments section below. How do you feel about Syracuse football taking a chance on a guy like Johntay Cook? How do you feel? Personally, I think the juice is worth the squeeze. In 2023, he was a 5-star wide receiver out of Texas. That's 2023. So not long ago, he was considered to be one of the best wide receivers in the entire country in high school. He had the pick of the litter of schools where he could go to, and he ultimately decided to go to the Texas Longhorns. You got to be pretty damn good to play for Texas. What does that mean? Johntay Cook has potentially limitless upside here. It is on the table that Johntay Cook has a monster year for Syracuse football in 2025. He's so good to the point where he does not come back to Syracuse. He goes directly to the NFL draft, and he becomes maybe Syracuse's highest draft pick since Justin Pugh. That's right. That's on the table here. This kid has a ton of talent. But, there's a but. There's obviously a risk here. This is perhaps Johntay Cook's last chance. In 2 years, things, they have not quite worked out for Johntay Cook. He's played in 20 career games over at Texas, just 16 career catches, 273 total yards, and 2 total touchdowns. Those numbers, they don't really jump out at you. They don't tell you, Jackson, this is someone who's going to be potentially a top draft pick in the NFL one day. No, they don't tell you that at all. So he hasn't exactly lived up to his 5-star pedigree. It should be noted that Johntay Cook began last season with a toe injury, and he played the first 6 games of the season, but then he missed the rest of the year. But there's also a risk with the off-the-field concerns. And I'm mentioning this not to put down Johntay Cook, but I do feel it's important to the story of him and why this really is his last chance to break out and be this wide receiver that we know he can be, which is one of the best receivers in college football and goes directly to the NFL. He transferred out of Texas in the December portal cycle, okay? That's when he decided to enter the portal. He went to Washington. Cool. He gets to campus, and within 48 hours of going to Washington, if you read the reports out there, he's dismissed from the program. So he's been dismissed from a school, he's transferred out of a school, and on top of that, Johntay Cook has been arrested multiple times. In fact, it's been fairly recent since his previous arrest, like literally 2 months ago. I believe they're all misdemeanors, but still, he has had off-the-field issues. The bottom line is this. Maybe, just maybe, this is what Johntay Cook needs. A head coach like Fran Brown that can help him, that can mentor him. This is a question of your faith in Fran Brown. If you're a Syracuse fan, do you trust Fran Brown's judgment here with a guy like Johntay Cook? I do. I am putting my faith in him. That's why I'm ultimately on board with this, but I want to hear from you in the comment section below. Do you think that the juice is worth the squeeze? And really at this point, even if you feel differently, well, guess what? The move is official. It's already happened. He could have a monster year. He could live up to 5-star potential. It's on the table that next year he has 70 catches, over 1,000 yards, becomes first team All-ACC, All-American. He's going to the NFL. It's also possible that the off-the-field issues continue, that maybe he can't stay healthy. There's drama. I don't know what it is. And he does not live up to his potential. So it's a gamble. But he is perhaps the most talented wide receiver to come to Syracuse in a very long time. And now it's a question of, can Syracuse maximize his talent? And so can Johntay Cook. Does he have it up here? And for those that are listening, I'm pointing to my head. Does he? I guess we're going to find out this upcoming season. I'm rooting for him, obviously. I want to make that clear. I'm a Syracuse fan. I'm a Syracuse alum. Obviously, I'm the host of Locked On Syracuse. And if Johntay Cook is doing well on the field, he's going to help Syracuse win games. So I'm rooting for him. And I support this move. But it is a gamble. And I cannot wait to find out what happens this upcoming season. Again, I want to hear from you in the comments section below. Is the juice worth the squeeze for a guy like Johntay Cook? Former 5-star wide receiver, troubles off the field, hasn't exactly lived up to his potential on the field. Is Syracuse the team that can get the most out of Johntay Cook and reboot his career in football? I want to hear from you in the comments section below. Let's now talk about the wide receiver depth chart at Syracuse. And that's going to come up next on Locked On Syracuse. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. You need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of steel professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. And folks, if you are excited about Johntay Cook officially landing with Syracuse, you might want to hit that subscribe button and you might want to turn on those notifications because trust me, folks, we're going to have plenty of content coming discussing this move of Johntay Cook to Syracuse football, the former five-star Texas and Washington wide receiver. Let's go over Cook's fit in Syracuse wide receivers depth chart. And let's start off by talking about how the Orange needed a wide receiver in the transfer portal, especially because they lost Trevor Pena. And, well, I think they got a pretty good one in a guy like Johntay Cook. I believe that based on talent, keyword is talent, Johntay Cook is the team's best wide receiver. He's got to be. He's the only one on the team who is a five-star or was a five-star. He might be the most talented player on the team, let alone the wide receivers. So I do think that he is at the top of Syracuse's wide receiver depth chart. But again, like I said earlier, it's about whether or not Syracuse and Johntay Cook can mesh together and ultimately fulfill that potential. How he makes Syracuse better? Well, as of right now, I think he pushes every other wide receiver down a spot on the depth chart, and that's a good thing. That means that your room just got better at the very top, and now your number one wide receiver might become your number two becomes your three, and so on and so forth. Scouting reports out there, they say that he can play outside and he can also play the slot, which is really nice. And we'll talk about that later on in the show, the versatility that he brings to Syracuse football potentially. But for the sake of argument, outside wide receiver is a more valuable position than slot receiver. So let's put Johntay Cook there for right now. The two top outside wide receivers now in Syracuse football. Number one, you got Johntay Cook. That's good. And number two, you got Darrell Gill. And we could talk a little bit here about Darrell Gill because in case you all missed it, I mean, we discussed him a lot earlier in the offseason in December and January here, but he had a really nice sophomore jump a year ago. He went from 60 yards as a freshman to 570 yards as a sophomore. And keep in mind, he was their sixth option on the offense last year, and he still managed well over 500 yards. And he actually led the ACC a year ago with over 18 yards per catch. I actually didn't even realize that until I was looking at his college reference, and I saw that his number in yards per catch was in bold, so I had to double check, and lo and behold, yeah, he did lead the ACC in yards per catch with over 18. He also went from 7 catches to 31 catches year over year. And I expect him that even with Johntay Cook in the fold, who's obviously going to draw targets and attention, that he will take an even bigger jump this upcoming year. Because a lot of targets from a year ago are gone. There is no Jackson Meeks. There is no Oronde Gadsden. There is no LaQuinn Allen out of the backfield. There's no Trevor Pena in the slot. They're all gone. So I think Darrell Gill is primed to have a big third season in college football right alongside Johntay Cook. So who's going to be the slot receiver for Syracuse football? That's a question mark. I really don't know. It could be just Johntay Cook. He could play the outside. He could play the slot, which would then leave a question of who's going to be in the other outside wide receiver. So I'll go based on last year because I'm taking a guess and say that maybe it's redshirt freshman Emanuel Ross. He was a 4-star recruit in 2024, so fairly recent. And he was, when he saw action last year, the backup slot receiver on the depth chart to Trevor Pena. So maybe he is the slot receiver for Syracuse football. And as far as other wide receivers on the depth chart, at least the top 3 others to mention here, you got Justice Ross Simmons. High hopes for him heading into last season. He was a transfer from Colorado State. Unfortunately, he dealt with a nagging hamstring injury heading into the season, missed a couple of games, and by the time he got back, he was Wally pipped by Jackson Meeks. Then he got Amari Hatcher, a field-stretching wide receiver, a veteran, had over 270 yards last season. Not exactly the greatest, but the year before, he had nearly 500 total yards, and he averages over 15 yards a catch. So this is someone who can also stretch the field, similar to Johntay Cook. And then you got Tyshawn Russell, a transfer from South Carolina, a little over 80 yards for his career. Keep in mind, there are more wide receivers on Syracuse football, but for the sake of argument, and we don't have all day here on the podcast, those are probably the top 6 wide receivers overall. You got Johntay Cook, who becomes your best. Now you have Darrell Gill. You still got Emanuel Ross, Justice Ross Simmons, Amari Hatcher, and Tyshawn Russell. I want to hear from you. Where do you think Johntay Cook slots in on the depth chart? Is he your number 1 outside wide receiver? Is he your number 2 outside wide receiver? Or do you think Syracuse is going to put him primarily in the slot and he is the direct Trevor Pena replacement? I want to hear from you in the comment section below. Coming up, we're going to discuss how Johntay Cook changes Syracuse's offense. Here's a question for you all. How do you think newly acquired wide receiver Johntay Cook changes Syracuse's offense? And what do you think he brings to this team? I think the number one thing that he brings to Syracuse football and how he can change this offense for the better, I might add. I mean, that's kind of inferred in that statement. How he changes the offense for the better. Speed. Speed kills, right? Because that's what he is going to bring to Syracuse football, especially if he is at his best and he can come anywhere close to living up to his 5-star potential, right? Locked On Portal podcast host of Locked On Seminoles, Brian Smith. You folks who have been following along the Locked On Syracuse podcast for quite a while, or you're just a fan of the Locked On Podcast Network in general, you've probably heard of Brian Smith. He's a recruiting expert, recruiting guru. He's been on the show multiple times. He has described to me Johntay Cook as, quote, an electric talent and someone that can fly. Well, I like the sound of that, right? Electric talent. He can fly. That's pretty good, right? And by the way, hopefully I can get on Brian Smith here on the podcast because he could provide a more in-depth scouting look on Johntay Cook. But speed, I think, is where he is going to ultimately help the most. His value with his speed is not necessarily in the production that he gets, but rather the attention that he can draw, which will open up opportunities for everyone else. Now, when I throw out this name, I am not saying that he is this player because there is only one of this player. You can probably guess who I'm thinking of right now. Tyreek Hill of the Miami Dolphins. Or is he a member of the Miami Dolphins? I mean, he's demanded a trade like 8,000 times. Is he going to get traded? Is he not going to get traded? I don't know. Right now, he's a member of the Miami Dolphins. Tyreek Hill, obviously, one of a kind. And he puts up production that really no burner has ever put up. I mean, he is a pure burner. And pure burners don't usually put up 100 catches in a season. But what also makes Tyreek Hill valuable, or really that field stretching deep wide receiver, is that they open up opportunities in the intermediate passing game and the short passing game because their speed, the defense needs to account for the speed. They know that on any given play, that speed demon could take it to the house. That he can go long for 60 yards and you can't catch him because he's just faster than you. So what does that do? Well, the cornerback has to back up a little bit, and well, you're going to need a safety over top just in case that corner gets burnt, which he probably will. So hopefully, Johntay Cook at his best could have that similar effect. Again, I'm not calling him Tyreek Hill. I just want to be very clear. It's more of to demonstrate the point of, even if Johntay Cook doesn't necessarily produce on a given day, maybe he has a day where he has 3 catches for 46 yards, Syracuse could still have a productive day on offense because he's going deep. The safeties are dropping back. The linebackers have to drop back. And as a result, the short and intermediate passing game opens up. Number 2, how he changes the offense. Kind of alluded to it in the first part there. He can score on any given play. If you read the scouting reports on Johntay Cook, he's got obviously tremendous speed, but he's a great route runner, and he's very quick. That means he's also great after the catch. When he has the ball in his hands, doesn't matter where he is on the field, he can score. And I want to draw your attention to that quick part. Short area quickness, very important. I feel like he would be perfect for those bubble screens that Syracuse loves to run. They call that play a lot. Jeff Nixon, second-year offensive coordinator. If you watch Syracuse last year, one of their bread and butter plays was the bubble screen, where the receiver kind of goes out a little bit, catches the ball maybe behind the line of scrimmage, and you got multiple wide receivers blocking downfield, and off you go. They often use that play as an extension of the running game. Johntay Cook, I think, could perfectly fit that exact play, a bubble screen. And he gives you that upside of, if you get the right blocking down the field and he makes one guy miss, he can go 60 yards. And it's a touchdown. First and 10 from the 20-yard line. You're looking to just set up the drive. You're looking for 6 yards. And he goes 80 yards to the house. Like, that could happen. That's another way he changes the offense. He's dangerous after the catch. And finally, we touched on this in the last segment, he's versatile. Can play the outside. That's big. Outside wide receiver is the most valuable wide receiver. But he can also play the slot. He's quick. He's nimble. He's shifty. All traits that you need to be a really good slot wide receiver. So those are the 3 ways that I believe Johntay Cook changes Syracuse's offense. Number 1, he brings an element of speed that the Orange simply did not have before him, and that's no disrespect to any of the other players on Syracuse's offense, specifically at the wide receiver position. I understand that Malachi James is a speed demon at running back, but specifically at wide receiver, they did not have a speed demon quite like Johntay Cook. Now they do. He's dangerous after the catch, and he's also incredibly versatile. And with that being said, again, I'll go back to my original question to you all. Is the juice worth the squeeze for Johntay Cook? Are you in favor of the move? Are you not in favor of the move? Tell me why. I want to hear from you in the comments section below. I want to be very clear. I'm in favor of this move. I support the move. And I think that this is a gamble that could really pay off for Syracuse football. But I want to hear from you in the comments section below. Now, as far as what is coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the future, folks, you might want to pay attention. All right? Just saying, because I'm going to tell you all a lot of information. Okay? So you might want to rewind, slow down the podcast a little bit. Maybe I speak a little too fast. I'm sorry. All right? Let's go over what's going to happen here. We are going to have plenty of more coverage on Johntay Cook. All right? Plenty of more coverage. And I'm going to try to get on Brian Smith, host of Locked On Portal Podcast, host of Locked On Seminoles, recruiting expert. He's been on the podcast before. Hopefully, I can get him on so we can talk more in depth about Johntay Cook as far as his scouting profile. I think that would be a great, fresh perspective for myself and all of you all, so we can really learn more about Cook. Tomorrow at exactly 3 a.m. Eastern on May 2nd, there was a crossover podcast I did with the host of Locked On Nittany Lions that was recorded before the Johntay Cook announcement. In that podcast, we talked about Trevor Pena, the saga with him in the transfer portal and him entering it. Is he worth the money? And we also talked about the state of both Northeast programs. Okay, that's also coming up. So that will also be in your feed when you wake up on May 2nd. Furthermore, I promise you, we're not done here yet with teasing future episodes. We got a lot of content here in May. Isn't that amazing? There's no games being played, yet we have so much content. Syracuse Orange official Twitter account released a 48-minute interview with Matt Park, Syracuse basketball head coach Adrian Autry, and Syracuse basketball GM Alex Klein to discuss the state of Syracuse basketball. It was like a State of the Union address. And so while we're not going to listen and react to everything that was said in that interview, because it was 48 minutes long and that would take a long time to listen and react to everything that was said, we will pick out some of the most important parts of that interview and listen and react to them. So those are more podcasts to come over the next few days and weeks. Okay? That's a lot. I know I threw a lot at you. So if you need to, feel free to rewind this podcast. Okay? Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. For your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Portal Show. I have mentioned Brian Smith here a lot on the podcast. He has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. You can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal Podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you can just do me a favor, tell one or two of your closest Syracuse friends about the Locked On Syracuse podcast so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. Plus, don't forget, you hit that subscribe button. You're also going to want to turn on those notifications. So hit that bell button so you know when I'm dropping the next podcast. Tons of Johntay Cook content coming. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. And I will see you all again soon.